my concern really is not that Saudi Arabia will get a weapon. I just think it throws open at a time when we're trying to stop proliferation, the prospects of others being very interested in controlling their own fuel cycle. And we've seen what happened, even in the 2015 nuclear agreement, the JCPOA, where the Obama administration conceded Iran's right to enrich, but that right to enrich had to be in conformity, in accordance with very serious IAEA inspections. And the Saudis, as I mentioned before, have refused to accept this additional protocol. And I think that sets a very bad precedent.
The Wall Street Journal is reporting that President Trump has approved what is a really significant agreement with Saudi Arabia to provide the country with a civilian nuclear program, as his country, America, wages war on Iran to prevent them from developing a nuclear weapons program. This comes along. The American Secretary of State Marco Rubio was speaking earlier at the ASEAN summit in Manila. He was questioned about what this deal might entail.
Well, I'm not going to opine directly on that agreement. We're going to put out, even when the moment is appropriate, we'll put out that in writing. We have to do it with Congress anyways, so we'll certainly do it publicly. But suffice it to say, the U.S. is not going to reach any agreement with any country in the world that leads to the risk of proliferation.
It's Marco Rubio there. Now, Aaron David Miller is a former U.S. Middle East peace negotiator. Hello to you, and welcome back to the show.
Thanks, John. Great to be here with you.
Aaron, this is big news, isn't it? Turning of Saudi Arabia into a nuclear-powered state. This has enormous, potential implications for the Middle East in economic and strategic terms.
Well, a civilian nuclear program, John, is not a problem. We have an agreement with the UAE, according to the Atomic Energy Act 123 agreement. That's the gold standard. That basically suggests that the Emiratis do not control their own fuel cycle. They can't use fissile material, either through plutonium extraction or through uranium enrichment, as the Iranians have done, in order to store fissile material and take the first step to becoming a latent nuclear weapon state. If, in fact, the Saudis were prepared to sign up to the 123 gold standard that the Emiratis have, I think there'd be much less of a problem. But the reality is that's not the case. And the Saudis have also rejected the IAEA's additional protocol, which promise and mandate a very heavy intrusion and verification, unrestricted inspections of the civilian nuclear program and any enrichment that the Saudis would be doing. The safeguards that have been built into this agreement, haven't seen the text that's going to be announced, appear to be pretty onerous. There's going to be a 2-year study launched, at the end of which the administration, still the Trump administration, 2 years from now, will reach a conclusion as to whether or not an enrichment program on Saudi soil, indigenous, is possible. And if it is, then the U.S. will construct and black box so that the Saudis are not able to somehow create enrichment on their own, unbeknownst to the United States. I mean, I understand Saudi Arabia is important, although South Koreans have been asking for this for years. And they are, unlike the Saudi, an actual ally of the United States. We have agreements with South Korea and forces there. And it's a democratic polity. So, to me, this does, in fact, create proliferation risks. It's striking, and ironically striking, that at a time when the United States is at war with a country that has essentially undermined our own proliferation policy by enriching without IAEA inspections, that we are now going to help another country promise them an indigenous capacity to enrich, even under American constraints. So I think, to me, it's very worrisome. I also note, since you quoted the Secretary of State Rubio, as Senator Rubio introduced legislation in 2018 with Democrats that prevented any nuclear cooperation with Saudi Arabia except by congressional approval. And it'll be interesting, although I think no surprise, that Marco Rubio will have abandoned that and will push hard for this agreement.
So that Aaron, it perfectly summarizes the misgivings and the concerns about giving Saudi Arabia the capacity to generate its own nuclear power. And it goes a long way to explaining also, doesn't it, the misgivings and worries in Washington, D.C. that have existed for some years before now. How far is it possible to map out the true extent of Saudi ambitions when it comes to a nuclear capability?
Look, and first of all, let's be clear. This is not just the Trump administration. The Biden administration was very close to reaching a deal,
yes,
which had very similar arrangements and provisions as the one the Trump administration. But the Biden administration argued that this deal should be tethered to a Saudi agreement to normalize relations with Israel.
Yes.
Frankly, that would make more sense. The Israelis are going to have a lot of problems, clearly, with the risks of Saudi proliferation. And look, MBS, Mohammed bin Salman, has said in 2018 that if the Iranians develop a nuclear weapon, then they need one as well.
Yes.
And I take them at their word.
Yes.
So, the others, the Turks, the Egyptians, and even the Emirates that signed off on this gold standard agreement are going to be standing in line wanting to cooperate with the U.S. according to the new Saudi rules.
Yes, yes.
So that does raise the risk of proliferation.
And of course, this deal by President Trump's second administration is not tethered to the idea of Saudi Arabia getting close to Israel diplomatically, although the Abraham Accords was a deal in the first term of Donald Trump, which again maybe gives rise to some concern on Capitol Hill. I mean, how far is it going to be possible, do you believe? Obviously, one can't answer this question perfectly. How far is it going to be possible for an American administration, the Trump administration, to constrain Saudi Arabia when it comes to this technology and the use of nuclear power through inspections and control over the tech and the hardware that is sent to Saudi Arabia?
I mean, do I think that the Saudis are bent on developing a nuclear weapon and we wouldn't be able to constrain them? No, I don't. But it still sets a bad precedent. And I ask myself the question, why? I mean, why are we doing this? I mean, clearly, billions of dollars to the nuclear industry in the United States. Westinghouse, which is likely to get the contract for these reactors, there's a fortune to be made. That'll be more money in the American economy, presumably more jobs. And Donald Trump clearly wants to reinvigorate the nuclear industry in the United States. I mean, my concern really is not that Saudi Arabia will get a weapon. I just think it throws open at a time when we're trying to stop proliferation, the prospects of others being very interested in controlling their own fuel cycle. And we've seen what happened, even in the 2015 nuclear agreement, the JCPOA, where the Obama administration conceded Iran's right to enrich, but that right to enrich had to be in conformity, in accordance with very serious IAEA inspections. And the Saudis, as I mentioned before, have refused to accept this additional protocol. And I think that sets a very bad precedent. And again, I just wonder, in the middle of this war with Iran, which John shows no signs of abating, in fact, if anything, I think we may be on the cusp of major escalation. People are talking about the deployment of U.S. ground forces. I think the Trump administration is in a box at a time when we're dealing with the nuclear issue and the issue of fissile material, 900 pounds of highly enriched uranium the Iranians have, and 11 tons enriched to varying degrees, which they have. Why are we opening another box and another case with another Middle Eastern state, which holds out even the remotest prospects of enrichment?
Okay.
I just don't. I mean, I understand what the Trump administration is doing. I just think it's a wrong-headed policy.
Right. It's really good to talk to you, Aaron, as always. I nearly said a pleasure, but it was a fairly dark conversation. So often our conversations are rather dark. That's Aaron David Miller, the former U.S. peace negotiator.
You brighten my mood, Joe, John. Thanks for having me.
I'm glad of that.